Hey guys, welcome back, and we got a couple of new faces up here, don't we? We got this person here, and this person here. I'm going to do this one first of all, since it seems to be connected to Carlos, potentially. Could be completely irrelevant. Is Life Unknown. 5 years ago wasn't a really long time. But when I looked down on Hong Kong from the airplane window, all I could remember was some fractured memories about this city. Everything I could remember about Hong Kong seemed to be connected to a coffee shop called Maple House. However, when I finally found the old address of a coffee shop, it was only a real estate agency of a location. I tried asking around my neighbourhood, and people told me that the matron of a coffee shop had died in an accident. But he also said a few regular customers had tried to keep the shop open in his name, but the landlord refused to extend the lease. That meant that I didn't really have any reason to stay here in the city any longer. I felt a little disappointed. Nevertheless, instead of wandering streets aimlessly, I might as well go back to the UK sooner. My mental condition hasn't been very stable recently. If I suffered an attack here, my doctor friend, half a world away, would be fond of help. For example, just earlier. No, actually, I couldn't even tell how much earlier, but just earlier was. As far as I could remember, it had been a clear night. I was walking out the alley in front of a coffee shop while I pulled away my blazer tighter around myself. It was quite dark in the alley, except for a pale white moonlight shining down from above. I intentionally looked up at the moon, when all of a sudden, I felt the moonlight getting whiter and brighter, and it was almost blinding. After a deafening moment of buzzing in my ears, I blacked out. When I woke up again, I found myself lying on the bed of a hotel room I had booked. On the other side of the same bed, another man with a scruffy face and long hair was lying down, snoring loudly with no inhibitions. Who was this man? Had he brought me back here? How would he even know that I'd been staying here? I nervously rummaged through his luggage. Besides a camera and some daily necessities, I also found a passport and a work ID. Apparently he was a policeman from Korea. Maybe he was a tourist. Perhaps he was just a good Samaritan who decided to return to a lost item he'd found on the road. To calm myself down, I realised I was still wearing the same clothes before I'd left. Wrinkles on my clothes, the germs on my bed from the other man, were both making me feel kind of uneasy. In any case, I couldn't call for room service before I left, so I decided to get changed first. I changed into my clean clothes and walked up into the main room. I sat down and sunk deep into a soft couch. The digital clock on the table said it was almost 10 PM on Tuesday. I decided to think about something before the man woke up. I used to want to become a doctor, but I never did. Reason was that while I've been studying for qualification, I discovered I had a serious condition. It's called Selective Cognitive Dissonance. It was a hereditary disease. A person who suffered from this disease would selectively manipulate their own memories about people and events based on their old psychological cognition. Simply put, their own brain would tamper their memories without realising. When I first found out I had this condition, I also realised that all my memories might not be accurate, or even true. I was terrified. I couldn't stop myself from second guessing the truth of my own memories. I was in the UK at the time. I had a psychologist friend. He helped me by treating me with hypnosis therapy. The treatment allowed me to forget the unpleasant memories of my past. He told me I was an entirely different person after the therapy. Afterwards, I had a few good years. There were some side effects too. I couldn't remember what my parents looked like or where my home was. For the past 2 years, there had been some more serious reactions too. Some fragmented, horrifying images would suddenly flash before my eyes, and I would feel severely sick or even pass out. My friends told me that the hypnosis might be wearing off, or my condition might be deteriorating. Whatever the case, we decided to do another session after I finished my trip and returned to the UK. I was staring at a TV opposite the couch when I suddenly sensed an inexplicable chill spreading over my entire body. It felt like the entire room was spinning and I could hear nothing but the overwhelming buzzing in my ears. At the same time, a number of unimaginable images were swirling through my mind. I could feel it, but I could feel a crack opening in my brain, and something sticky, rotten, and pitch black was coming out of a cocoon. I was having a relapse. I held my arms tightly around myself. I knew I was about to completely lose control. There was a knife on a nearby desk. I could see my own reflection in the black screen. My face was gradually overlapping with some gruesome visions in my head. It was too late. I remembered everything. My parents' faces, my home, and my hellish childhood were buzzing my ears and were spinning, were morphing into excruciating pain, pinching every single nerve in my body. These bloody memories of cruel truth I had implied were pushing me to the brink of sanity. If I was on that edge, my illness would take over my mind and push me off a cliff. And then, history would repeat itself. I did not want to become someone I hated again. I did not. I cannot. I refuse. I must stop myself. I picked up a knife from a desk and stabbed myself on my throat at a perfect angle and a perfect depth. I could not afford to leave anything to chance. Goodbye, Dad, Mum, this world. I just hope in my next life I could be a good, healthy child. Is that our little kid? I sat on my bottom bed on the only bunk in the tiny room, held my head in my hands, thinking about the most baffling question of the moment. Why was I in prison? About half a day ago, 2 policemen had arrested me on the street. They put me in a patrol car and brought me straight here, Hong Kong Central Prison. No one ever answered any of my questions, and they beat me up when I showed any resistance. No one just threw me inside the empty room. There was nothing here except a bunk bed, a wooden desk, a sink and a toilet. It didn't even have a window. I suppose this is what they call a jail cell. Cell 28, open up! The door opened me and sat outside. Someone came in. Right. Must be a prank by random guys. They're probably just trying to give me a good scare. They must be getting me out now. However, a person came in had a pale face, white on the wall, a pair of lips red in the blood, also wearing a strange long robe. It was a ghost. I'd always been afraid of ghosts since I was a little kid and jumped on the bed and hid under a blanket, trembling in fear. Get out! Your bed's on top! Don't lie on mine, how dirty! I heard a soft voice on the outside of the blanket. It actually sounded like a human. I climbed out of bed and stood aside, watching a new person chained into a prison uniform and wash himself. He seemed to be right at home. Soon the scary ghost became a short young man with a clean haircut and an innocent-looking face. He was my cellmate, Hotaru. We just met. Hotaru was a really easy-going guy. He immediately told me everything and how he ended up here. Hotaru was from Japan. He had a long-term girlfriend from China. The only problem is the girl came from a very prestigious family but didn't approve of Hotaru. However, they still kept seeing each other in secret and they would fly across the sea every once in a while just to be together. Eventually I realised I would never receive her family's blessing, so I decided to elope. Unfortunately, just when we were finally ready to run away together, the girl was killed in an accident. Hotaru was devastated. Being so far away in Japan, he didn't even know what really happened to her. He came to Hong Kong and tried to talk to the girl's relatives and friends that he knew, hoping to piece together the clues. His efforts finally paid off in the end. He learned that one of her family members was responsible for her death. It was merely collateral damage and a vicious power struggle. Hotaru wanted to avenge her death, but he didn't have any powers or connection to distant land. He had to seek help. He remembered a professional assassin he had known in Japan. He was famous for his creative ways of eliminating targets. Some people refer to him as the magician. He also had a strange hobby, old adult magazines. Hotaru was able to find out the magician happened to be in Hong Kong at the time too. However, hiring him required lots of money, which Hotaru didn't have. He began to do everything he could for money. Inevitably he dabbled into illegal activities. And eventually he was caught and thrown in prison. He still wouldn't stop. To him, a prison was just another society, not unlike one outside. It was populated by plenty of residents with all kinds of different values. It wasn't just a guard or a warden. Even some of the prisoners might have unusual, powerful backgrounds. He hustled amongst his people. He was willing to do everything and anything for a profit. He smuggled contraband, he traded information with prisoners, he gambled with them. Bribed the guards, complimented them, sometimes even sold his own body. Hotaru said as long as he could get his revenge, he didn't care about himself at all. He began to choke up. I was so angry after hearing his story. I was also feeling both admiration and sympathy towards him. If I was in his shoes, I probably wouldn't be able to do what he'd done. Unfortunately, I'd know him when I found a few $100 on me when I could give him for now. I believed every word he'd told me. Next day, during lunchtime, I was mocked relentlessly by the other prisoners. Son, you should be thankful you only had a few $100 on you. I Told you was going to fall for it. Oh wait, give me 100. What kind of story to tell this time? Deceased parents? Or what he said? It's not entirely made up either. Yeah, 9 guards out of 10 of me didn't played around with him. I was so angry I dropped my spoon and ran back to my cell. I told him I was sitting in my bed with his legs crossed, making a pyramid out of poker cards. You lying bastard, give me back my money. He paid me no attention and put 2 more cards on top. A mini TV was playing a Japanese prank show near his knees. Sound of laughter came out of the TV right on cue. He was mocking me too. I stepped forward and turned off the TV. You monster. I dragged him off the bed angrily. The pyramid of cards collapsed and I scattered all over the floor. The air in the cell seemed to have suddenly frozen. People began to gather right outside the cell. A tall, strong guard walked into a crowd. I recognised him. He was only taking my mugshot when I came in and searched my belongings. I seemed to recall that he was from the UK. Everyone called him Morgan. I was about to tell Morgan what happened, and he punched me right in the face. Her toe wasn't completely lying, at least. Everyone here might have some kind of unusual background behind them. Oh, I was so unfortunate. Not only did I end up in prison, I had to live with such a bastard of a cellmate. Lord, was this part of your trial for me? Interesting. Let's completely swap it around. See how this one goes. Selling murderous impulses. I angrily dragged him off the bed. I grabbed a knife from the desk and held it against his pale and tender neck. The pyramid of cards collapsed. However, the next day, not only did I not see a penny of my money, I was moved into another cell. Since then, I would often find my food tickets gone. All my uniform thrown in the toilet, stained with filthy things. My new cellmate was a huge meathead. I didn't get complained to anyone about him. I told him we'd never return my money, but somehow I found myself missing him a little. I could see my own reflection on my blank TV screen, my face gradually overlapping with some gruesome visions in my head. It was too late. I remembered everything. My parents' home, faces, my hellish childhood. But buzzing my ears, spitting and wolfing excruciating pain. Those bloody memories and cruel truth I implied were pushing me to the brink of insanity. I was on edge, my illness would take over my mind and push me off a cliff. Then history would repeat itself. I didn't want to become someone I hated again. I did not. I cannot. I refuse. I must stop myself. I pulled a window open and looked down to the ground 15 floors below. I stepped over bars and fell to the concrete. Interesting. The policeman was no longer asleep. He was standing at the door to a bedroom. He was holding his head in his hands, looking confused and neurotic. He looked at me as if he'd done something despicable to him. However, I was one really losing control. The image of a screaming monster was lingering in my brain. These horrifying fragments of memories were beginning to become clearer. I couldn't control myself, chuckled and laughed and screamed. I felt some changes happening inside me, something not quite right. To make sure I could still control myself, I lunged at him. We were tangled together, hitting each other as hard as we could with a fist at our feet. I need to relieve what was piling in my mind in the most primal way. Pushed his head away with my hand slammed into the TV screen. We then shattered into pieces. I didn't win the fight. The black barrel of a gun was pushed against my left temple. The person who was holding the gun had the same face as the policeman, but I could see something different, something much more frightening. You're a monster. What's going to happen with a knife? We now know that this guy's probably a little kid, and the policeman is probably our criminal friend from I can control myself. Make sure I can still control myself. Picked up a knife at the desk and lunged at him. I stabbed him in his shoulder. He suddenly dropped his fending hand. Became extremely quiet. Next, I saw his eyeball twitching and he mumbled something. I had a bad feeling, so I tried to pull the knife out, but my right hand was caught. I looked at him again. I couldn't believe my eyes. The person was standing in front of me had the same face as the policeman, but I knew they could not have been the same man, and turned into something different. Interesting. Just a few monsters, that. I looked at a food knife and had an idea. I decided to hold off on my anger for now. Later at night, I was lying on a top bunk, waiting with my eyes open. Hotaru returned in his sleep. The entire bed shook violently and I heard a panicked scream from underneath me. I looked down, feigning ignorance. My bottom bunk only had a metal frame left, and a few broken pieces of wood on the floor, and the screws I had loosened up earlier were lying instantly in the corner of my cell. Hotaru sat on the floor in shock, still processing what just happened. Ha, you sucker. Back at the orphanage, I'd been a fat little kid who would always bully me. I wanted to taught him a lesson the same way. I was scolded by Alicia, it felt good. I needed a week to fix the bottom bunk. In the meantime, Hotaru was temporarily moved to another cell. Being in the cell alone was quiet, too quiet. I would sleep in the top bunk of the orphanage and Alicia would sleep in the bottom one. It wasn't a sturdy bunk bed and Alicia would have held a bed every time I climbed up. Otherwise it felt like the bed would immediately topple over. How I wish I could find her sleeping down there when I woke up. I flicked with a wet pillow, laid my head on it again and closed my eyes. I just seriously start thinking about what to do next. The image of a woman on TV hysterically screaming "monster" lingered in my eyes. Why was I having such a strong reaction to this word? A few blurry visions began to come together in my head. Some were starting to become even clearer. There's a room without lights, a man who looked like a doctor, and me as a child. It was a monster whose actions destroyed my sense of self. When we clashed with each other, only one could survive. I felt some changes happen inside of me. It felt so good, as if a group of people had been tolerating and smoking in an enclosed space, and then the smoke of somebody was killed by a falling meteor. I left the hotel. I walked into the middle of the street, under a pale moonlight. I used to believe God when it was real when I was a kid. If he or she was real, none of these things would have happened to me. People like me, we didn't need a god, we just needed a dagger. I decided to stay in Hong Kong. There must be a lot of people here who use a dagger like this. A dagger like me. Interesting. So you're clearly Park Sang-gun. Jack, apparently. Born 9th of June.
결코 이렇게 되진 않을 거야.
You got a mole under your eye. You also got a mole under your eye. You're also born on 9th of June. Okay, let's go to profiles again. Let's double check him. Those two are clearly the same person. Selective cognitive impairments undergoing long-term hypnosis therapy in Britain. Meanwhile, interesting. We do have posts now, but I'm actually not going to do posts yet. Or should I do posts? Let's take a post.
Lo siento.
A boy with a baseball cap.
부처님, 나도 좀 도와줘요.
And gun. Ink 4 gun. So clearly, That one's now linked to that one. Carlos and Alicia are linked again. And the guy in his new one is probably Kang. So that one happens way earlier, Park Tengen. The thing which makes this one more confusing is just how the timelines aren't directly linked. Whatever. Till next time when I probably do Lee Wen and possibly a friend, we'll find out. Until then, bye bye.